Hello everyone, welcome to my week 3 teaching memo. Winter has hit us hard here in Poughkeepsie. Dr. Laura had 2 snow days on Thursday and Friday and a delay this morning. Even though Turo was closed Thursday, Dr. Tom was working. Post Super Bowl news, someone stole Tom Brady's jersey right out of his bag in the locker room. Can you imagine? Well, housekeeping. I'm pleased with my favorite intervention discussion board in my 64021 section. Only one person seems to have started that in my 23 section, but you have 2 more weeks to do it. Your presentations are very professional, and you're explaining your interventions clearly. That discussion board will be open for 2 more weeks. The only fluctuation in grades will come from when you make your initial post and if you post 6 times on 3 different days. So make sure you go in there for 3 days. So you got 3 weeks to do this discussion board, so that shouldn't be a problem. Many of you are adding web links to your discussion board, which is a good thing. In the video that goes along with this, which is what I'm doing right now, I will demonstrate how to use the link icon to add to make your link live on your post. So I will do that. I will do that in this. Let me see. I will go into this favorite intervention discussion board. Edit. If you have a link, like here are 2 links here. So what you do is you highlight your link, you go up here to the link icon. Now you cut and paste that link into this link path here. You can see that there I have it. I've cut and pasted the link in there. Now you go down to this drop down window and make it open in a new window. If you don't do that, you're going to leave Blackboard, and that can be problematic. So when you update it, now you will see that the link is blue like it is right here. These are 2 exemplars for my favorite intervention discussion board, and that's how I did it. And so that's how you make a link live in your discussion board post. I've graded some of the DEJs on response to intervention, and I have one major piece of feedback, and this is what many people struggle with. When you react to a quote, I want to hear your voice. Now, what does that mean? Some of you that are literature people or ELA people, you know what your voice means. It means giving your opinion, making connections to yourself, rather than saying, oh, this is what the article says. This is what I think the article means. And those are what I call summarizing or paraphrasing or reaffirming annotations. Reaffirming annotations is, this is great, and I think everyone should do this, and yes, that's an opinion, all right, but all you're doing is reaffirming what the author said. If you believe that, then connect to the texts, especially the ancillary texts that I have in course materials. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to write in a conversational tone. I want you to have a dialogue with the text, and I want to hear you make deep connections to yourself and strong opinions supported with evidence from our other readings or from my presentation. For every session I have a presentation, and you should look at that to see what I think is important to react to in the double entry journal. So the favorite intervention, big ideas, response to intervention is one of the most important topics in special education portion of this course, and you probably have seen it in other courses as well, because it pertains equally as much to regular education teachers as it does to special education people. Regular education teachers need to know what RTI is because they are the first line of defense, or as I like to say, the best defense is a good offense. So, having research-based interventions of your own, some of the things that you've looked at or will be looking at in the next couple of weeks on Intervention Central or the What Works Clearinghouse or Intervention Hero are things you can use in your regular class with a small group or with individuals. RTI doesn't mean as when I was a high school principal, response to intervention meant this is what you do outside of the classroom. Well, no, it isn't. Tier 1 is the regular classroom environment, and that's where it starts. Tier 2 would be a small group either in the classroom or outside the classroom, and Tier 3 would be done outside the classroom with a special ed teacher, although it could be done inside the classroom as well. And the amount of intensity increases. Now, one of the things that a lot of people miss in their DEJs is talking about progress monitoring. So when you go into vocabulary in your own words and you define research response to intervention, you better mention progress monitoring through the use of CBMs. So in every tier, every intervention that you use, there should be regular progress monitoring and charting of that progress. And you could see that in 1 in the Cohen and Spencer chapter, and 2, I think there was discussion of it in the not in Bender and Shores, but in the main article that the two authors escape me right now. But in the main article, there was also I think it was Abby, an example of progress monitoring and what you do if the student isn't making progress. Some of you are making suggestions on how to modify some of the interventions, and that's okay. And the thing is, if it's an intervention and you can get it to work by modifying it, that's good. But one of the things, though, if you go into a meeting, a response to intervention meeting, you cannot say it. If you've modified, you cannot say it's a research-based intervention because you have to implement it with fidelity, as mentioned in Cohen and Spencer. And fidelity means just the way it's talked about in the research. You will notice that you have. I've graded the DEJ's discussion board. This was an exercise to get you familiar with what I expected for your first DEJ. This is a great process anytime you want your students to know what you want by looking at products of varying levels of quality and then discussing or grading them, or both. So that's a part of assessment for learning, which we'll talk about in the last couple of sessions of this course. Session 4, learning targets. 1, I want you to define key vocabulary words associated with the standardized testing process, and I'll mention those a little later. Accurately describe the difference between a norm referenced and a criterion referenced test. Many of you already know that, so that's something that you've already accomplished. To be able to intelligently discuss, and notice I said intelligently, the intricacies of creating a large-scale standardized test, because many people just blow them off and say these things are unfair, they're not right, they're not aligned with the standards. And once we get through with this session, you should think a little differently about it. And to summarize the prospective Common Core assessments funded by the federal government. Many of these are in place right now by throughout the country. We're not using them here. Matter of fact, the New York State is changing or they're reforming or updating the Common Core standards as we speak. So, and in the next, so your assignments for the next 2 sessions, you will have a regular discussion board on hard as the Dickens, so that you're going to have 3 weeks to do that. So because there's 2 weeks, we have a week off. So you got hard as the Dickens talks about the care that goes into creating large-scale assessments. There are many reading materials. You don't have to connect to all of them, but you should look at them and use them, especially my presentation and Chapter 6 in Cohen and Spencer, Chapter 13 in Popham as well. And there are also many resources in Session 4. Remember, you start losing points if your initial post is later than 7 days after the session starts. So that would be Sunday, February 19th. And I don't expect you to list a summary of all the readings. This reading said this reading said this reading said that. I want you to respond to the writing prompt and use those documents to support your opinion. So don't just summarize them. That's not what I'm looking for. We also will be looking at cost. Many of you will rail about how much these cost. There's an article that details the cost of creating these tests. So be informed before you start ranting. There are also articles on becoming a psychometrician. What's that, you say? Inquiring minds will want to find out. So there's much out there on the web to support whatever your opinion. And a good place to start is procon.org. If you click on this link in my teaching memo, it will take you to the pros and cons of standardized testing, large-scale standardized testing. Remember, every test that everyone takes the same way is a standardized test. There's a standard multiple choice quiz on the topic of norms and test scores. I believe this is just multiple choice. You should be able to find all of the answers in Cohen and Spencer, 2015, Popham, 2012, and my presentation. There is a hard copy in this session's course materials, which you should download and take first. After taking the hard copy, I would suggest going into the quiz discussion board and discussing the ones that you are unsure of. Remember, no answer giving. This is a formative tool where you enhance understanding by discussing the questions rather than giving answers. If I see any answers, I'm going to delete your post. I would then take the quiz online, go back to the quiz discussion board, talk about the ones you got wrong, and then take it online the second time. So you actually get 3 chances to take this test. And lastly, keep going on your vocabulary in your own words. There are several terms in this session's materials: norm and criterion reference tests, which I mentioned before, correlation coefficient, standard error of measurement, SEM, and standard deviation. If you do this as the course moves along, you won't be stressed when it's due on the last day of the course. This current session ends in 2 weeks, which is the 26th, February 26th. And as I said, the discussion board that starts today is not due till March 5th. So that's it. That's it for this week. Hope everyone has a happy Valentine's Day, which is tomorrow, and a good President's holiday. If you have hopefully you have a long weekend. I know some schools are off for a week, and I will see you in 2 weeks.